Welcome to E2 Talks. Today we're going to be looking at how do we equip elders to lead. You see, the farmer doesn't go out into his field in September and October without first going out in the spring to plant. The person on an assembly line does not simply stand at the end and expect something to come out unless somebody down the line has started the assembly for them. The baker just simply doesn't open the door and look inside without first gathering the ingredients, mixing it, preparing it, and putting it into the oven. Many times as leaders in the church, it seems like we expect elders to simply come forward on their own with no effort from us. That leadership is something that just occurs naturally, and therefore we don't have to do anything to prepare, equip, resource people to be leaders in the church. But what we've actually found in truth is we have to. There has to be an intentional strategy of preparing people to lead. And so what I'm going to provide today, what I'm going to share today, is actually a strategy for preparing leaders. Now, this is a strategy that could work with existing leaders who are already in positions of authority. It could even be appropriated for those who are new to leadership, orienting them to what an elder does. But perhaps even more importantly, it could be done with potential leaders, people who have the marks of leadership but lack perhaps some maturity. They lack some skill. But they are a diamond in the rough. And so what I'm going to discuss today is a strategy that can help bring people into leadership, orient them to leadership, and then once in leadership, continue to resource, train, and equip them to lead. So how do we do this? Well, I want to suggest a fourfold path to preparing people to lead. And by the way, the four are simply these: group study, supervision, mentoring, and self-study. And I'd like for us to look at all four of those as four ways of preparing people. The first is group study, the classroom. You gather people together, you study a topic, you appoint a teacher. But the simple fact is the classroom is probably the most common and the most typical means of providing any kind of training. However, it is limited. You can't learn everything in a classroom. And so while it's important, it cannot be the only way we do it. So what good is group study? Well, it can actually help orient people to their new ministry. It can provide information that's essential for a leader to lead the church. That group study could gather around a biblical text like the pastoral epistles or the book of Philemon, or perhaps use books designed for elders, such as resources that E2 produces, and together study as a group. It could even be elder retreats or advances. But what it amounts to is, by group study, we are providing for the mind of an elder. We are really cultivating a mind for leadership and providing also a context for the spiritual formation of leaders in community with one another. Now, many churches have this, and that's where they stop. But frankly, I want to encourage us to look at the other three to be used in concert. In addition to group study, there's supervision. Supervision is actually an approach designed to develop the skills of an elder. It's on-the-job training. Remember how to ride a bike? Do you remember how you learned to ride a bike? I don't think somebody pulled out a podium and showed you a picture of a bike and talked about the history and philosophy of bicycles. No, they took you out, and first you probably got on a tricycle. And after you understood the pedaling mechanism, they put you on a bicycle with training wheels. Notice that word, training wheels. And after you exhibited a little bit of balance, they took one of them off, like the right one off, leaving the left one on, and said, if you start to tip, lean to the left. Hopefully you do your left from your right. Eventually they could remove the training wheels and you were able to go on your own. Well, how do you think we train people for the skills of leadership, for the skills of serving as an elder? I know how I learned to do evangelism. I know how I learned to do visitor follow-up at church. I was assigned to go out with another gentleman who said, Jim, watch me, listen to me, see what I do. And I saw him go up and knock on the door, introduce himself, shake their hand, thank them for being at the church, gave them a gift, and hoped they would come back again, and left. He said, did you see what I did? Yes. Watch again. And I watched him go to the next house. We drove there, he got out, he did the same thing. Then he said, your turn. And then I got up and nervously knocked on a door with a squeaky voice, said my name, and thank you for being at church. We hope you're back. Here's a wonderful gift. Thank you for being with us today. He gave me some feedback and some direction. And then he said, let's try it again together. And he did this until I could do it myself without coaching. You see, that's supervision. That's somebody training me to do ministry, one-on-one, or perhaps in a small group. It's spiritual formation through service. You see, supervision is best at skill development. When we can accompany a more experienced other and watch what they do. Work with that experienced person. Take input and feedback from them until we can do it ourselves. And then, frankly, the task is passed to us to bring another alongside us to do it. Supervision is another way to train and equip people to be leaders in the church. But a third area is mentoring. Mentoring, and this really helps develop the life, the values, the character of an elder. This is when you are pouring your life into someone else's. I imagine if we paused and reflected quietly on our spiritual journey, God has actually put in our path and along our way people who have encouraged, supported, provided resource, have been there to guide and direct, have taken part of their time and their life and devoted it to seeing us become a better person, a better Christian, a better leader. And that's mentoring. See, this is used best for personal accountability, for discipleship, for providing spiritual direction with people, with helping people build relationship. We're actually following Paul's example when in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 1, he said, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. And when he wrote to Timothy in chapter 1, verse 2 of his first epistle to Timothy, my true son in the faith. You see, he had a mentoring relationship with people to help guide and direct them. And finally, is self-directed learning. This actually helps develop the mind, the skills, and the heart of a leader. It's the lifelong learner. You see, self-directed training is when you take on the responsibility yourself. And when you say, I have learned and I can actually feed myself as I feed others. This is best used for personal development, for keeping current with changes in ministry and in society and culture. And I have a general principle that I like to share with people, particularly those who are leaders in the church. It's simply the 1-1-1-1 principle. It's where I say that you should read one book per year, minimum. I'd rather say one book per month, but one book per year. Go to at least one conference per year that's about church, that's about leadership, that's about discipleship or evangelism or teaching, but something to hone your skills as a leader. Subscribe to one Christian journal or magazine that you'll get on a regular basis, that you peruse through and read through, and once again, keep the mind cultivated. And finally, visit one healthy church per year. Now, that doesn't mean you're not attending or active or working, serving in a healthy church. But we can always learn from sister congregations. And so while you're on vacation, while you're visiting family or friends or on a business trip, find a church in the area to visit that you said, I think we can really learn something from them. And when you do those things on a regular basis, the 1-1-1-1, you're feeding yourself. You're developing habits of a leader who is a learner. And so group study, supervision, mentoring, and being self-directed. These four can be used in concert with one another. They can come together as a strategy for training, resourcing, and equipping current leaders, new leaders, and potential leaders. And when we use all four, we learn to lead well.